of the commission and any consultant used or on file with the town and are hereby made part of each and every application heard tonight. The guidelines and procedures adopted by the commission are also made part of each and every application. Each application heard tonight is considered on its own merits and is not to be considered as establishing a precedent for any other application. The Historic District Design Guidelines have been adopted by the town of Sykesville in accordance with Article 6B 8.06a of the Maryland Code and follow the recommendations of the United States Secretary of the Interior. The Sykesville Historic District Commission follows Robert's Rules of Order with the exception that the chairperson votes. And obviously, Kevin has said this evening, starting off, we do not have a quorum this evening, so we will be reviewing the said application this evening on its own merits, and we will give some guidance on that application, and then on the next meeting, we will have a finalized vote on that subject. So, Kevin, do you want to read?
Yep. Yeah, so I'll run through the staff report, and as Chad mentioned, we will make a formal motion at the next meeting when there's a quorum available. But a lot of folks on vacation this week, so again, so the applicant this evening, they're requesting approval for a new hanging sign, along with some feedback on a painted wall mural for their business at 7611 Main Street. So HCC approval is being requested for a 29-inch by 18-inch two-sided multicolor sign with the business name and slogan for Moonshadow Collective. The sign is constructed from a wood-like material. The application didn't specify whether the graphics will be printed or carved and painted onto the sign, so I'm sure the applicant can clarify that. It'll hang from a newly placed black wrought iron bracket above the stairs leading into the business. The application does indicate that the bottom of the sign, or the proposed sign, will hang 6.92 feet above the ground. We know that's below our typically mandated standard of 8 feet. The application also mentions that the sign will not project more than 42 inches from the front facade, and it'll be set back at least 12 inches from any curbs, just to comply with all other applicable guidelines. As we know regarding materials, HCC guidelines simply state that hanging signs should be constructed of wood, metal, or other appropriate materials. And then regarding the painted wall mural, so the application provides information on this. The mural intended to be located on an area of blank wall space adjacent to the business entrance. The mural will be nature themed and contain words with a sunburst design surrounded by various animal silhouettes, along with an arrow indicating the location of the new business. My understanding is because of how the business is oriented, it's sort of tucked away a little bit, so they want to draw as much attention to their entrance as possible. So looking at the hanging sign, again, it's despite not meeting the height requirement established for hanging signs, the included illustration, which I will go back to, it shows that the sign will be mounted as high as practically possible on the building facade. The HCC may approve signs that are below the 8-foot standard if the building cannot accommodate a sign at that height. So the requested hanging sign here appears to comply with all other relevant HCC guidelines, so long as the commission is comfortable with the proposed materials and height being shown. For the wall mural, HCC guidelines do not provide any review criteria for a painted wall mural, meaning that formal approval is not required. But the HCC may offer feedback on the proposed mural for the applicant to consider as they move forward. So again, even though we can't formally approve the application tonight, HCC is being asked to determine if the location, size, and materials for the requested hanging sign at 7611 Main Street is appropriate as presented, or offer an alternative suggestion for any potential concerns. Considering the characteristics of the building that limit the height at which the sign can be hung, staff is comfortable with the proposed location and has no other concerns with the sign as presented. HCC may also provide any feedback or comments for the applicant to consider regarding the proposed painted wall mural at 7611 Main Street. Again, they provided illustrations of both, along with sort of blank area as the building currently exists. You can see what's there now versus sort of what it's hopefully going to look like moving forward. Obviously, the applicant is also here this evening if you guys have any questions or need clarification on any of the requested items.
Okay. Comments?
Do you know what it is going to be? What is the lettering? Is it painted?
Carved and painted.
Okay, I do have some questions regarding applied wall signs in our HDC guidelines. Mm-hmm. It says applied wall sign should be mounted flush on a signboard if appropriate to the design of the storefront. An applied wall sign may be mounted flush immediately above the storefront cornice. They may be centered over the entry to the business in the signboard area or in the area immediately above the signboard. Applied wall signs should only have the name of the business and its logo or symbol if appropriate. And so if that mural is considered a signboard, our guidelines say that the name itself probably is acceptable, but the mural itself is something that the guidelines do not address.
Right, so I guess that depends on whether the HDC wants to consider this to be a sign. The code specifically regarding signs, it could go either way.
But if it isn't a sign, what is it considered? A mural?
It's just considered a mural.
Which we do not have guidelines.
Right, which isn't addressed. So again, it's something that if it's just a mural, it doesn't require formal approval from the HDC, but we figured we would include it for the sake of providing feedback to the applicant if she's willing to, if there's any major concerns with the way it might look or detracting from the historic district. And I should note again, but this is considered a non-contributing building in the historic district. And again, I think the idea of the mural is to just try to draw attention given the location.
Sure, and so our pledge is to maintain the Historic District Commission and the street itself and the boundaries of the Historic District Commission. And so I think one of the issues I have personally is that back in the historic days, you had signboards and it was kind of advertising the business itself. This is advertising the business itself, but it's also a mural in some part. And we have a ton of murals that's coming in Sykesville. And it's starting to get a little busy with murals in town. Not to say this isn't a nice mural or anything of that nature, but I'm concerned about it's southern facing, right? Is it southern facing? Is it going to fade over time? Is it going to be maintained? Is it appropriate for the area? And I know Ridey's facility has a ton of stuff that was done without approval, and so that's something. Any thoughts on that, Matt?
I mean, to me, it's like we didn't talk about that blue color. We didn't talk about colors of buildings. Mural is kind of just a painted surface and a color on the building itself. That's kind of
it's
where
a
my mind
graphics
went.
though, and we talk about graphics.
It is.
It would be different if it was, a color and
But then if you take away the graphics and you just have the animals and the things, you have that same issue with it, right?
No, I'm saying if you take away, you're exactly where you're meant to be, and the animals, and you just had Moonshine Collective as an arrow.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm playing counterpoint on that to say, okay, so you're picking the battle based on the Moon Shadow Collective, and you're exactly where you are meant to be. Take that out, you would still have a problem with the mural, right?
Well, I'm trying to decide, is this an applied wall sign in some ways, or is this a mural? Because in some ways, you're adding the company's name, which is Moon Shadow Collective, which to me is an advertisement, which is part of the signage package, which is part of our guidelines. And then the other part, it's like 50-50. Half of it is a mural, half of it is advertisement for the business itself. And so I'm challenged on.
Would you feel differently, I guess, if the name wasn't in the arrow and the arrow was just sort of directing folks to the...
No, I think I'm okay with the arrow and the Moonshine Collective arrow itself. My struggle is the mural, and what is that exactly? How does that relate to the Historic District Commission and our guidelines in maintaining the historic fabric? Even though it's non-contributing building, we're trying to maintain the fabric of the Historic District Commission. So maintaining the fabric based on murals. So if every company down in the street says, okay, tomorrow we're going to start painting murals on our buildings because somebody's starting to put murals up, I start to think about what the town's going to start to look like in the end. And so, not saying that your mural isn't nice or anything, but I think once we start, putting precedents up there and people start looking at, well, they did it, can I do it?
I mean, I really, at least from a town or a staff perspective, the answer to that is yes. They as it currently exists, there's no,
But
there's
this harkens
guideline.
back to what we're trying to achieve with the Historic
Sure.
District Commission and maintaining the fabric of what a historic town should look like in some capacity.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we've talked about colors too before, because we talked about making a palette up because we're not satisfied with some of the color selections that people have chosen for buildings, which is a side conversation that we need to have at some point. But do we roll this into it as well, as saying, do we limit the amount of murals we have in town, art projects? You know, we have denied some art projects in the past, but we've accepted quite a few art projects. And in my mind, this is part art project and part business signage. So where do we start saying?
Yeah, so I guess, like I said, from the staff perspective, when we were looking at this, we looked at it as a mural, not necessarily a sign. And then when it comes to sort of interpreting what is a sign and what isn't, that you kind of fall into a rabbit hole. We've gone down that rabbit hole as staff many times. But again, as a staff perspective, we were looking at this as a mural, and as a mural, it's not technically dictated or policed by our HDC guidelines. So it's not necessarily something that I think we can particularly say you're just not allowed to do that.
But if you put a window there, then it's window signage, and we have complete control.
Right. Well, yes,
So it's
that's
like-
right, because it's with display windows. Because display windows are obviously considered a feature that
Right.
you don't necessarily want to obstruct.
But you're
fully,
okay with
but-
the CMU getting obstructed, I guess.
Yeah. So.
I just think, if we're charged with maintaining the historic character of downtown, this is part of that character that we
Sure.
need to start to establish and think about as we move forward. And so, what if this was an entire wall of a building or the backside of a wall and somebody wanted to do, and we say, okay, we don't have anything in our guidelines, or the town doesn't mandate what is a mural and what isn't a mural, then people are just going to go off the hooks with it. Not to say this isn't nice, like I said before, but that's my input that I say. So, once we reconvene, I think that's a discussion piece that we still need to have with the rest of our members.
Okay. And that's something that, obviously we can at some point have a discussion between staff and members of this historic
And is
district.
that more a discussion of in the future for the guidelines, or is that a discussion on this particular moment? To me, I guess when I look at that cinder block wall painted a nice dark blue, I kind of think that a mural might actually do it some favors. And I understand what you're saying. We don't want to open this up to the world to say, hey, just paint your buildings as you see fit and do all the designs you want and we'll have a cityscape here.
Yeah. Every way we turn, it'll be an art project.
But I think that's two different moments, right? We're talking about this specific one. I don't have a problem with it. When talking about maybe getting the guidelines towards murals, it's also probably a conversation we want to lap into the colors of buildings,
Yeah.
the overall aesthetic, because it is. Right now I don't feel like we have a lot to say in it.
Can you pan back up to the hanging sign photo? And so, obviously, this sign is not going to be visible from the street really whatsoever because of the angle that it's approaching the street. So I understand your concern of having some sort of signage. And so I'm wondering, do we allow maybe a larger sign that runs perpendicular on the cornice above that would have more presence and be more of a placard or something above, kind of like the band shop, but not backlit and stuff of that nature. Something that would give a little bit more presence, obviously, because this sign is kind of minimal, and maybe you can introduce some of that artwork or something into that signage if it was allowed to be a little bit larger to encompass over the front doors. That's just a discussion piece I wanted to talk about too.
Can I pipe up? Am I loud?
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Public discussion.
Yeah. It's right. I was thinking that too of overhead. The only issue, there's really not much to work with when there's a gutter there too.
No, what I'm saying is standoffs and a sign that is elevated even above that.
Interesting. Okay.
Tying into the roof.
Well, just it could be pinned off of the fascia and then turned up and then a sign.
Yeah, I don't. I wonder what the fascia is. That feels like it's like.
It's
Is it just?
T111 or
it's
siding
like
or
tin-ish.
There's
It
gotta be a
kinda
nail.
I feel like it's standing seam that they turned down
Yeah,
and didn't attach below, so it's just kind of hanging.
it is.
So it's only got an attachment probably behind the gutter.
Well, it could be angles that came off the standing seam or something. I just think
Yeah.
just addressing the prominence of the front elevation so that we have this sign on the angled with perpendicular to the road limits also with the restrictions of the buildings, you know, with the wine shop, Southern States or whatever it's called now, blocking that kind of road access when you're coming up. You're not going to be able to see this sign unless you're coming the opposite way down down the road. You're going to maybe see it in the winter when there's no foliage on the trees. So I'm just saying, is there a different way to approach this instead of a mural wall art that we could appease both ways?
So, yeah, I mean, if that's a recommendation you would like to make, you can certainly make the recommendation, but I just want to make sure it is understood that we can't explicitly say that they can't paint a mural here because there's nothing in the guidelines that prohibit it. So if you want to recommend that, you know, maybe they consider another option that's well within your abilities, and then the business owner can take that into consideration as they move forward.
Sure. And that's a discussion piece.
Knowing that you guys are, you know, supposed to be the experts on this kind of stuff. But again, it's not something that we can't really say that they can't paint it because, you know, you don't want too many murals in town. And certainly I'm happy to facilitate a meeting between staff and the HGC to kind of work out some of these kinks. And
Well, it goes back to my discussion piece of, you know, is this an applied wall sign or because it's painted onto a wall surface, or is this a mural? Because in some instances it's both.
Right, so again, it's from staff's perspective, we looked at it as a mural, and generally when it comes down to interpreting the code and what is a mural versus what is a sign, that is a staff determination. And the staff determination on this is that it was a mural. So that's sort of how we approached looking at
Well,
it.
I mean, it's a discussion piece for next time.
Yeah, no, it's certainly something that as we move forward, if we want to add something into the guidelines
Mhm.
regarding murals, and I know we've talked about colors a lot, so we can, you know, I can follow up with you guys tomorrow about maybe finding a time to hold a special meeting to talk about those kinds of things and potentially getting them added to the guidelines.
Mhm.
Happy to do so.
Yeah, I think it's necessary.
Okay.
And the thing about murals too, from an art perspective, what I really like about it is that it's paint, so it makes it, one, it's more inexpensive than signage, and then two, if the building needs to be repainted, it can be repainted without
Sure.
any destruction to the building itself. Because I understand what you're saying too, of like the colors. I wouldn't have picked that blue or that yellow, but here we are. So I understand. So it's like maybe when you are having that discussion, if it does come to a mural, like, I mean, I hate to paint a mural to only paint over it, but that's always an option of like, hey, like if you guys determine something and make, because right now it's not overseeing murals, but if you determine like adding in colors and murals into something, then I'm happy to
Sure.
discuss further and
Yeah.
figure out the solution. Also, my other thought was, would it be better if the mural and the arrow were more separate so that they're two distinct different things?
No, I don't have an issue with the sequence of how things are set up. I'm just questioning, like I said before, if it's a mural, if it's a wall art, is it applied sign, is it like, and also hindering back to the fabric of what we're trying to achieve in Sykesville. And so, you know, if you go to somewhere in Boston and stuff, probably wouldn't be allowed if it's a very strict historic district commission. Obviously, Kevin said that, you know, there is no guidelines that kind of mandate the mural process and oversight. So maybe that's a discussion piece we need to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there is that in the future, I would love, if there's ability to be a part of that, just because I've done research in the past with organizations I've been with,
Mhm.
where what murals can help do from a like foot traffic perspective, and then also from a word of mouth marketing perspective, because it's so like shareable and it brings joy. Then it
Sure.
really helps to bring people seek out murals to go find them, to take pictures with them.
Yeah, we have quite a few of them, I think, now.
Yeah.
But I do think you're right as far as, so with this building non-contributing, what was it, 1955 or something, cinder block. But man, when you start to get into people painting on the 100-year-old brick and
Yeah.
messing with things like that, I think that is something we definitely want
Yeah.
to, have limitations on.
No, I agree. That's certainly a worthwhile conversation to have. Something I'm happy to facilitate. So
Okay.
we can
Joe,
coordinate
comment?
on that.
Oh, I kind of wanted to piggyback on your comments. I have been into your shop,
Yeah.
but I had to be talked into it. 'Cause I'm like, we're not allowed in there. There's nothing about it that says, please come in.
Yeah.
So like, this is somebody's private office, it's closed off. And I think having the big sign over the doors would be more, I don't know,
Make it seem.
yeah, more direct.
Yeah.
Yes, you can come in here.
Yeah, and I'm not sure when you visited. Thank you for visiting. We also, we're trying to think through other ways, like making sure like we have an open flag, and we have 2 A-board signs. That one goes on the curb over by Patapsco, and one's right next to us, so that it can help
Visibility.
direct people in. And then once Uncle Joe's gets a sign too, then people stop
We
asking.
already
where
approved that,
sandwiches
they
are.
need to get going.
Yeah, that was approved. They're just waiting to have it made. Okay. So for the sake of at least this application and this request, do you guys have any serious concerns? I understand you think that, maybe a larger sign above the door might be more appropriate for drawing people in. But again, if this is what's being requested, so if this is the direction that the applicant decides to go, would you guys have any issues with what's being requested with this particular sign?
I don't have a problem with the sign itself.
Mm-hmm.
This sign that we're seeing right now. I just think that it's going to limit the visibility for patrons coming into the building from the street. And maybe consideration should be given to orient it in a different fashion so that it is
With that
more-
orientation, you will get it coming from the corner of the Patapsco Distillery. You get a
It's
form
kind
view
of
of that.
the way the road is, it's awkward of which angle you want to get.
Yeah.
But I could explore with Shannon Baum signs of
Sure.
how much it would be overhead, and go from there.
You do a street view.
Yeah.
Might be able to tell you a good way to tap into it.
This computer's real finicky though, so it takes a second. It's not letting me drag.
And I just have another idea too, just going off the murals as well. If there's discussion in the future, I think it would be really interesting to look at, because way back in the day too, before billboards, it was a very common practice.
Oh yeah.
And so then it would be interesting of like, if there are murals, do they have to be in a style of?
Definitely.
'Cause I
Certain
think
lettering.
that would feel.
So like mail patch advertisements that were on the side of barns and stuff of that
Yeah.
nature.
I find
that-
that so fascinating.
That's the thing, is that classical feel, and that's what I would like to see maintained a little bit
Yeah.
more instead of.
And I could see how I can adjust that to make it feel more that too.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be a nice nod.
So from the street, actually, yeah, this is kind of what you look at.
Yeah.
So with the sign hanging off the wall that way.
But you have to remember the sign's this
It's
big,
tight.
Right.
and you're 60-something feet from the road.
But again, that comes back to, for hanging signs, we have size restrictions
Yeah.
that are mandated not just in the HEC guidelines, but in our town code as well.
Yeah.
And I have a funky little spot.
So like Patapsco Distillery, see their sign above their door? Look at it's a decent size placard. It's a wall placard. But if something like, maybe smaller than that, something above the door that was approvable in that area, maybe more visible. It's just an idea.
Thank you for sharing.
Any other thoughts?
No.
Comments, concerns? So overall, obviously,
Yeah.
you would be okay though with this sign as presented,
Yeah.
no issues
Yeah.
with it, and
100%.
with the recommendation of potentially something more visible if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Don't want to slow up the process. Trust us.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the work that you all do. Because
Yeah.
I think that it's very important.
Okay.
Well, like I said, no formal motion this evening, unfortunately, but again, we will hash that out at the next meeting. But in the meantime, it seems like you shouldn't be concerned to move forward with this sign. Hopefully you guys can get it put up and
Yeah.
get rolling. So
Yeah, I know Shannon Mom's installing Uncle Joe's and then I'll
yeah,
get mine and we'll
they've
There's a
done.
backlog.
be. Yeah.
Well, I think
That's
they
got
wanted,
quite the business.
yeah, I think Uncle Joe's wanted to wait for approval before they spent the money. So
Yeah.
and then so they've been waiting to get it made.
Well, we approved that a month ago, didn't we?
I guess it takes about a month to make a sign.
Man. Good. Seems
Think
like,
he's
seems like a
hit
day
a-
trip to me, but
hit
what
a
do I know
button.
about science?
Also just like might not have been the top
Okay.
thing they were
Fair.
thinking of.
Yeah,
whatever.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to make a motion to adjourn since we don't have a quorum.
Perfect.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Look forward to seeing you whenever the next meeting is.
Yeah, so September, we'll have the next meeting, the 24th. I will not be here for that. I will be out of town, but Carrie will be here in my place. She's obviously run many a historic district meeting or been the liaison for many meetings, so fully trust that she'll be.
What's what's going on with the liaison?
Oh, with Lisa, so this evening, so Lisa Groff is the new
There we go.
HCC
She was here last.
liaison.
Was she?
She was here at the last meeting. Fortunately, she couldn't make it tonight. She had a prior obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
See you on one of those Friday kids.
She had a prior
Yeah.
obligation, but we
Excited.
could anticipate her being here for most, if not all, the meetings moving forward.
Okay. See you later.
But yeah, obviously, since Al is no longer on the town council, he will no longer be a council liaison. So Lisa Groff is the new, Councilor Groff is the new liaison for the HCC. So, yeah, just a prior obligation.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying about the mural, right?
Sure. For sure.
I don't want to see the town going. So you ever been to like? There's a bunch of college towns I've been to for like weekend trips and stuff, and it's like tie-dye shops,
Bang the
and
gavel.
stuff's
must be,
painted everywhere.
Let the
It's like,
CMC folks know that we're finished.
it's not even one.
The camera.